Kim Martier, and I am a member of the Ever After Encounter team. Hey, Anita, it's so good to be with you today.
Thank you.
So, a couple of years ago, when the first Ever After Encounter was held at St. Paul's Church in Somerville, I was able to go. And I remember the announcements and finding out about it, and I was excited. And I didn't really have a 100% firm idea of what I was getting into. I just knew at the time that I wanted to be fed. I wanted my soul, my spirit to be fed. And the Holy Spirit just led me to invite my cousin and two of my friends. And we're all at different stages of our life, but we all went together. And the funny thing is that each of us came away with something different. Change, peace, wisdom. It was so enlightening, and I really had a great time. And I've been to another one since then, and I'm looking forward to the Ever After Encounters in the future. But there are some questions that some folks have about the whole experience. And so let's just talk a little bit about what is the Ever After Encounter.
Well, Kim, before I tell you what the encounter is, allow me to tell you a little bit of the why behind it to make it a little more understandable. For millennia, the gospel had always been understood as it's presented in the scriptures as a story. In fact, as the most beautiful of love stories. Paul captures the essence of this in Ephesians 1:4 when he says this: long before God laid the earth's foundations, he settled on you as the focus of his love, to be made whole and holy by his love. But tragically, since the Enlightenment, the gospel was stripped of its story approach, and it was reduced to a list of rules to follow and principles to live by, with the emphasis then being on what we must do for God rather than on what this amazing God has already done for us. But salvation can't be a story if it's a to-do list, right? So the Ever After Encounter seeks to awaken women to the wonder of being a part of the story of God, to be awed by the fact that God loved them so much that not only did he write them into his story, but he uniquely designed and equipped them to play an irreplaceable role in that story. So at the Ever After Encounter, we do this in many different ways. Through captivating worship, through meaningful discussions with the women seated around our tables, through moments dedicated to personal and quiet reflection, all centered around dynamic biblical teaching interspersed with movie clips and multimedia segments that all illustrate the truth we're exploring at the time. So many hearts of women are broken and they don't know how to put them back together again. That was me for so many years. So many live in dark places and they can't see the way forward. And that's what the Ever After Encounter seeks to do, to help women regain hope for the path forward.
So why would I want to do the Ever After Encounter, another women's conference? What's different about this women's conference?
The Ever After Encounter is different in several ways. One being, it's not about gaining more information. In the past, I was addicted to women conferences. I love learning. I would come back inspired, but hadn't experienced change that lasted for very long, and here's why. Most Christian women conferences are geared towards gaining more information. And while we are very committed to biblical teaching and prioritizing that at the encounter, we also understand that true transformation doesn't come through just gaining more information alone. That's why the Ever After Encounter is not a conference. It's an experience that sets the stage for a woman to experience the love, the presence, and the power of God in life-changing ways.
Well, I'm not really into fairy tales or princesses. Why would I want to go?
I'm laughing at that question because I can't tell you how many times women have come up to me at the encounter and said, when I was invited to the encounter, I really didn't want to come because I thought it was just another frou-frou women's event. And when I heard fairy tales were involved, I knew I really didn't want to come. And I get it. But these are the very same women that leave the encounter saying, boy, that was such a deep dive. That changed my whole way of thinking and living. Whether you like fairy tales or not, facts inform the mind, but nothing reaches the heart like a good story. Stories have greater power to impact us than just a straightforward explanation does, and here's why. Story involves both the left and right sides of our brain, both our emotional and intellectual ways of processing. So when you're deeply engaged in a story, your right and left sides of your brain, your right and left ways of knowing are activated and harmonized. And that's when true healing begins. Scripture calls that shalom. Psychologists call it integration. But isn't that what we all long for? For the knowledge we have about God in our minds to be felt deeply experienced in our hearts so we can live, think, and feel from that reality.
So, Anita, how is this message going to deepen my relationship with Christ?
It's been said the longest journey is the 18-inch journey from the head to the heart. I couldn't understand for so long how I could have so much knowledge about God in my mind, but in my heart I couldn't internalize His love for me personally. I couldn't understand why. But now I understand there were reasons why I felt that way, and those reasons need to be acknowledged and they need to be tended to. And that's what we seek to do at the Ever After Encounter. That's the greatest impact you will have, deepening your relationship with Christ by coming to an Ever After Encounter, is that we seek to merge that disconnect between the head and the heart.
Where did you get the idea of the Ever After Encounter? I think it's an amazing concept.
It's so interesting you asked that, Kim, because the Ever After Encounter was actually born out of a long 10-year journey in my own life. I call it the dark night of the soul experience, where I had just entered a time of profound loneliness and despair. But the Lord was so tender with my heart then, as He began to awaken me again to the wonder of His story. He took me back to these stories that I loved as a little girl and began to show me aspects in those stories that were true of the story I live in, which is the story of the gospel. And so it began to heal my heart. It was a long, painful journey, but through that, it was as if the Lord was saying, first, Anita, I have to do this work in you because I'm going to use it to do it through you, to share this message with women whose hearts are broken. They don't know how to put them back together again. I marvel at the fact that Jesus said, I've come to heal the brokenhearted and to set the captives free. But then God designed our bodies, our hearts, our souls, our minds to heal in such a profound way. It is through His creation that we see His mighty power and His beautiful attributes. And even after the fall, He gave us everything we need to heal so that we are living and thinking from the reality of His love and favor.
So I know the Ever After Encounter is not an exclusive mother-daughter event, but why would I want to bring my daughter to the Ever After Encounter?
It's not an exclusive event for mother and daughter, but it would be certainly appropriate for you to come together as mother and daughter. I think it's usually in the second half of life that we finally have the time and energy to look back at our own lives and begin to just think about the trajectory and the things that we have experienced. And so we begin to ask some of these deep questions. But I've also had very young women, we design it for ages 14 and up, and I've also heard young women say, I'm so glad I heard this as a young person, because now I do really understand that God does have a plan and purpose and He loves me so much, but there's an enemy who seeks to destroy me, and I need to be attentive to the lies that I'm believing and how I'm thinking and how they impact my life on a daily basis.
So what can I expect when I arrive at the Ever After encounter?
Well, we have round tables already set up, beautifully decorated for the women. We want women to just come in and feel like we prepared the table for you.
Nice.
You know,
I love it.
And we encourage women to obviously come with friends and sit with their friends. We have trained table leaders leading the discussion, but we encourage friends to sit together. When you arrive, there'll be light refreshments served, and then you can find a table where you and your friends can be seated, and you'll stay at that table the whole time, Friday and Saturday night. There's worship on Friday night.
There's music on Friday night.
Yeah, there's music.
And you have the message also.
Yes. And we kind of do an overview to kind of set the stage for Saturday. But then on Saturday, we go a little deeper into some of the concepts.
Yeah, Saturday is amazing because that's where you start to think to yourself, wow, all these lies that I've been believing that were just the enemy.
Yes.
And you teach through your messages how to acknowledge that.
Yes. And I really think, Kim, that's why the Ever After Encounter is so unique from other women events, because we really talk about real life struggles and mental health challenges. We don't shy away from that. I, for so many years, couldn't figure out how I could have such knowledge about God and His Word, but still struggle so intensely with anger and anxiety, depression, cycles of depression and despair. But now I understand why. And so at the Ever After Encounter, we dive deep, we address those reasons why, and we really seek to help women with the path forward.
Right. Anita, you don't have a degree in counseling, do you?
I do not.
Amazing. You would think that you did.
Oh, well, I do not have a degree, but I am a neuroscience geek. I think so much of our teaching in our American churches and our discipleship is just geared towards our minds, but that is actually only using one side of our brain. Dr. Jim Wilder calls us left brain Christians because actually so many of us don't know how to engage with God on an intimate heart level. We've never been taught how. And those relational capacities that are cultivated are actually all developed on the right side of our brain. But what is so beautiful is that when the mind and the heart are merged together, then we are thinking and feeling and living from the truth that we know in our hearts and in our heads. It all comes together, and that's the way God has designed us to live as His daughters. It would be my honor to serve you at the next Ever After encounter. I hope you will consider coming, invite some friends, maybe even rent a hotel room and have your own retreat together as you just prioritize time for yourself as you look back and then look forward to all that God has for you. There's so much more for us to experience as His daughters.